Welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. Our host is integrative medicine Dr. Michael Finkelstein. Michael offers medical advice from a holistic paradigm, including both medical and metaphysical philosophies from the full spectrum of human experience. Slow Medicine Radio offers fresh ideas on how to attain a state of wellness that seems distant given the limitations of today's medical paradigm. It introduces you to thought leaders who connect the dots between theory and practice, examining health from a broad perspective with regards to medical diagnoses, conventional and alternative therapies, healthcare policy, and related topics that warrant further thought and discussion. Slow Medicine Radio does not prescribe to take this or do that. Instead, it offers an open-minded, intelligent, and practical approach to living, resulting in greater health individually and collectively. Here is Dr. Michael Finkelstein, the founder of Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York.
Well, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein, and we're here every Monday at 5 o'clock. And you could tune in on your AM dial, 1460, or worldwide on the net, WVOX.com. And the mission of this program is to explore the subject of health, in particular your health, and how you can become healthier. And there's so much advice out there. You have heard a lot of it, and a lot of times it's a matter of putting the pieces together, connecting the dots, and coming up with a plan that works for you. Just as an aside, today I had a wonderful day. I was visiting a new friend of mine, a physician who operates a farm similar to me out in New Jersey. His farm is much larger, though, and amazing property in central New Jersey. And he and I were talking about health and healthcare and transforming the lives of people who come to see us. And he, like I, often come to a point where we are giving people new ideas and advice, and we're really asking for substantial change, and they are daunted. Maybe you're daunted by all the list of things to do to get there. And that's a predicament. But today on my show is a guest, Alan Seale, who I think can talk to us a little bit about transformation, and transformation that will work to help us achieve that state of health perhaps that seems distant. Alan is an award-winning author, inspirational speaker. Transformation is a good word for him. He describes himself as a transformation catalyst. He's the founder and director of the Center for Transformational Presence. In his first book, years ago, Intuitive Living, A Sacred Path, received many awards, particularly in the area of spirituality, and other books including Soul Mission, Life Vision, The Manifestation Wheel, The Power of Your Presence, and Create a World That Works are all very interesting. I like the idea of creating a world that works, particularly in today's world. But his next book, The Deep, Simple Transformation in Action for a Rapidly Changing World, is scheduled for publication next year. And I think when it comes to this subject, I can think of nobody better in our world right now to help maybe shed some light on that. And as a man who works in the area of life coaching and has led many people to become coaches, I think he's maybe the person who's most authoritative there. So, Alan, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, so, you heard my introduction, and obviously a lot's going on in the world right now. And when I visit a farm with my colleague who's operating an environment hopefully people come to and they get inspired, there's still this issue that when people are faced with the subject of change that seems to get them hesitant to get started, or sometimes mid-track they get overwhelmed. Is that your experience? And then maybe how do you in your work help people that way?
Yeah, there is this overwhelm, and there is this, I think, kind of fundamental fear that actually I'm just starting to get a sense of maybe what that fear is, that as the world around us is changing so rapidly, that fear of what happens if I don't know where I am? What happens if I don't recognize the world around me? What happens if I don't recognize whatever that might be, this relationship that's changing a lot? What happens if I don't know who I am within that relationship? What happens if I don't, even from a health perspective, I suddenly sort of don't understand or don't know this body that I'm living in? It's doing different things now. So there's that sort of fundamental piece of what if I don't know where I am, who I am, what I am, what's happening in the world? What if I get lost in all of that? And certainly, with all that's happening in the world right now, there is that that sense of, do I know where I am? Do I recognize this? People talking about, this is not the country, this is not the political party, this is not whatever that I thought I belonged to. And so it's a really interesting time that we're in.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, when you use the word fear, what people are afraid of, that what I've noticed too is that people get very attached to the familiar, even if the familiar is sometimes disharmonious or actually not healthy. And so that there's a lot of anxiety when contemplating change, even change away from something that's already problematic. That seems to be a fundamental quality of human beings, and why community is so valuable, because if our whole community moves in that direction, at least we feel supported. But so many people have a hard time getting started.
So I've been thinking a lot about where we are in the world right now, and in a lot of my lectures and workshops, talking about this time that we're living in as the great breaking open. If we look at things that are happening in society, things that are happening politically, and things that are happening in our families and in our businesses, in the corporate world, in the economy, at pretty much every level of society, things are breaking apart. And you could say on one level it's all falling apart, it's all breaking down. I look at it on the other hand as, what if it's breaking open? And what if in that breaking open, finally we have the opportunity to actually make some significant shift? The breaking open at the most fundamental level to me is the breaking open of the human spirit. That there is this cry that's coming out from the human spirit, whether that is for I can no longer live in these circumstances. I can no longer live in a country or in a situation where I am not honored and respected just as a human being. So we have the refugee crisis, the immigration crisis, and I work a lot in Europe, and so I've been really kind of in the middle of many of the things that are happening there. Or it's this breaking open of anger and resentment and frustration that I'm not being recognized, or I'm in all that's happening racially in our country as just one example, certainly from what's happened in the last week. Just this breaking open in anger, or this breaking open of compassion, of so many people in the world responding to things like the immigration crisis, the refugee crisis, things that are happening on so many levels, people responding in compassion and wanting to make a difference. Even the whole social entrepreneur movement is so built in that sense of compassion, this breaking open of that recognition that people can no longer see themselves as separate from everything else. And what that's really bringing me to is this separation that we have created now between the heart and the mind, between the heart and the intellect. And recognizing that there is this incredible intelligence, this intuitive intelligence that resides in the heart, or that is centered in the heart. And then there is our intellectual intelligence that resides in the brain and the intellect and the head. The Institute of Heart Math, I'm sure you know their work, and the incredible research that they've done. And one of those most important pieces to me is when they have let us know that in their research, they've discovered that the electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times greater than the electromagnetic field of the brain. And what that's saying to me is that the heart and this intuitive mind has access to a field of information that is 5,000 times greater than the field of information that's accessible only through the head. The heart is also where we find our connection to the much bigger picture, and the head puts everything in little categories. Well, we've been conditioned now for so long to live only from the head, to start whenever we approach anything, we start from the head to analyze it, to figure it out. And maybe we touch into the heart a little bit to soften the edges, but we are primarily in that headspace of figuring out, analyzing it, and trying to make sure that we're going to be safe, because that's the intellect's job fundamentally, is to make sure that we survive, that we stay safe. By doing all that, we have lost our connection to the heart. to the bigger picture view, to that understanding of, the heart can see how everything fits together. The heart can understand a much bigger picture. The heart is what allows us to gather information. It's through the heart that we gather information and integrate that into our being, and then the intellect can take that information and organize it and catalog it and put it into a file system, in a sense, inside of us so that we can access that information when we need it. All this is just to say, when we come back to the fear, this place that we're in right now, that when we are meeting the world primarily from the intellect as our first place, then we are meeting the world from a place that is good at organizing and analyzing, but can't see a big picture very well. It's not very good at gathering information. And so it's a place that is based on fear, on need for safety and security. It is coming from a very limited worldview, as opposed to the heart that comes from this much larger sense of awareness of matrix of relationships, a matrix of everything being connected to everything else. It's a whole different way that we come to the world. I feel like that at the most fundamental level, this is the great breaking open. It's the breaking open of our hearts again.
That's interesting. Would you then advise people who do feel overwhelmed, who are watching the news, who cannot manage to organize this information and those images, to settle down by getting more reacquainted perhaps with their own heart rhythm, their heart connections, and come out of their heads into their bodies, if you will, with their heart in its center, and spend more time there?
Exactly, and it's actually really simple, Michael. It's just a matter of, I invite people to just put your hands on the center of your chest and gently massage there. Just gently massage your own heart center, and immediately, for many people, the energy starts to shift. There's a softening. And the thing is that because the heart has access to such a much larger field of information, it has the capacity to take in what's happening, and to take it in from a place of it's just information, without a judgment on it. Just take it in. This is where we are. This is what's happening. And we get to choose what we do with that information. The head gets totally overwhelmed by all that. That we are living in such a complex world, and the intellect is not very good at dealing with complexity. It can deal with complicated, but not with complex. So that's kind of a whole other discussion we could have. But when there are so many layers to what's happening, the intellect gets overwhelmed by that very quickly. Yet the heart, in some kind of amazing way, is able to just take that in and hold it and be with it. So if we can just breathe into the heart, that's a place to start. When we start to get overwhelmed, just come into the heart.
I think that's a remarkable concept and thought and practice. I think this would be a good time for a break, maybe, to allow people to put their hand on the heart for the next minute or so and follow that suggestion and consider how overwhelmed you may have been feeling over the last week or longer, and maybe other issues going on in your life personally. See what happens, and if you would like, when you get back, you might call us, 914-636-0110, and share your experience. I'm speaking with Alan Seale, who is, among other things, a person who could help guide us and coach us into a life that we can probably barely imagine if we only follow it through our heads. So let's think about our hearts for the next minute or so, and we'll be back on Slow Medicine Radio.
You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. You can find out more about the show and the work of Dr. Michael Finkelstein by visiting his website, slowmedicinedoctor.com. Slow Medicine Radio is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, dedicated to providing community-centered experiential and reflective learning for individuals, families, and groups, offering educational programs, events, and resources, as well as insightful health evaluations with customized medical guidance. Dr. Finkelstein works with his wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, at their farm, Sunraven, in Bedford, New York. And they invite you to visit and take advantage of this unique resource, including men's and women's groups and couples programs. If you think about it, much of what we experience when we don't feel well is a result of the fast world and how it affects us. Therefore, if fast is the disease, then slow is the medicine. Visit Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York. Go to slowmedicinedoctor.com or call 914-218-3113. And thank you for tuning in Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm here joined by Alan Seale, who's an inspirational speaker, transformation catalyst, founder and director of the Center for Transformational Presence, and award-winning author who's going to come out with another book, The Deep Simple, Transformation in Action for a Rapidly Changing World. And who just gave us a good idea, which is to do a heart massage, get ourselves out of our head. Alan, I'm wondering if your new book contains something you think is relevant to this discussion.
Well, absolutely. And actually, I just want to follow right on with where we just were, because you left us at the break by saying, so just think about your heart for a moment. And I would like to invite us to feel the heart, not think about it so much.
Thank you.
And because this is another, I think, great breaking open here. We as a society are not very good about feeling anymore. We've shut that off, because that's when we're so connected to the intellect and not very connected to the heart. So it is that invitation to come back into that space, and at first that can be a little scary for people because it's like, oh my God, if I really let myself feel, that's already so overwhelming. And actually, if you just take that first breath with it, and it might be overwhelming for a moment, and then suddenly there's something that breaks open and kind of releases. I'm wondering, Michael, if it's, actually from the Heart Math, there's an amazing, very simple tool called High Heart and Low Heart. It's a tiny little exercise we could do right now, if you would like. That
love it. Maybe
for your listeners.
Yep.
I'm just going to close my office door here because my neighbor's running a lawnmower. And so in the Heart Math research, they talk about high heart energy and low heart. And, it's funny, I had heard that term for a long time, but until I read the book, The Heart Math Solution by Doc Childre, I didn't really understand what that concept was. Both of these energy centers connected to the heart center have to do with love, but yet kind of different energy of that. The low heart center, which is located kind of at the base of the sternum, maybe halfway between the heart chakra and the solar plexus chakra if you're working with the chakra system, that low heart energy center tends to have to do with empathy and sympathy, maybe can be kind of our issues of codependence or here. It's a heart center that is still kind of connected to our emotional needs. I need for something to be okay. It's sort of like when you ask someone else, are you okay? And what you're really saying to them is, I really need for you to be okay. Tell me you're okay so that then I can be okay. So there's kind of our own need wrapped up within that. And then the high heart energy center, which is more in the upper sternum, halfway between the heart chakra and the throat chakra, this high heart space is, I think of it as the compassionate observer. It's a place from which we can be fully engaged with what's happening, yet not entangled in what's happening. And here we are, the place when we talk about watching the news or being in an overwhelming situation. It's this high heart space that can help us to be present, fully engaged, yet not entangled, not overwhelmed with what's there. If you take a moment first, all of us as the listeners here, to breathe into your low heart. So imagine that the breath is coming in through the base of your sternum, and it's still filling your whole body, going deep in your body. Deep and full breaths, but you're activating this low heart center with the breath. Take a moment to notice what that feels like, to breathe in and out through this low heart center. Notice your overall sense of well-being, how it feels in your body, your sense of the breath. Just getting a little connection to that low heart energy center. And then shift your breath to the high heart, in the upper sternum. We're still breathing very deep in the body. This has nothing to do with a deep breath or a shallow breath. Take as deep a breath as you can. But imagine that breath coming in through this high heart energy center. And notice how that feels different. Now we're moving quickly here because of time. You can keep playing with this on your own, but let's now put this into a real life situation here. Bring to your awareness a challenge that you have, something that is a concern, something you're worried about, something that's maybe overwhelming for you. And whatever that, we'll just call it your topic, whatever your topic is, come back to the low heart. And be with that topic, that issue or concern, breathing in and out through the low heart. And notice what happens in your relationship to the topic, what happens in your overall sense of well-being. And then shift your breath to the high heart. Breathing in and out through the high heart. You're still there with the topic, but meet your topic through the high heart. And notice if there's a shift in your relationship to the topic itself. The topic hasn't changed, the situation is still there, but notice what's happening in your relationship to it. So, Michael, what do you notice?
Well, it's interesting. I just had a conversation with somebody who's I'll call it a patient of mine, who was concerned with the news that she heard about her tumor. And, I'm deeply concerned. And that felt like a very low heart thing. And it feels like when I was breathing that thought and concern, I felt full, almost like I ate too much. Mm-hmm. And a little, I wouldn't say queasy, but a little, sort of sick to my stomach. And then when I came from the high heart, I felt lighter, more expanded, almost felt like something was digesting matter, or creating more space.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a wonderful, wonderful way that you're speaking about that. This high heart simply allows us to have the bigger picture view. Now, there's actually physiological reasons for this, because the high heart energy center is connected to the thymus gland, which is where the immune system comes out, the T cells, as well as the release of endorphins comes from there. And so there is a physiological thing that's happening here when we activate the high heart and can be present with what is from this high heart space. Again, it's the compassionate observer, or as one of my colleagues says, he talks about the low heart as being the Teflon heart. Everything sticks and gloms onto there. And the high heart is the Teflon heart. Everything just flows off, so that we can be present, we can be fully engaged, we can be supportive, we can be with the person that we're serving or taking care of, and yet not entangled in all the feelings and emotions and stories and stuff that's there. Here we are in the world when we can come to what's happening in the world from this high heart space. Again, the circumstance has not changed, but what we're shifting is our relationship to it, moving into a space where now we can engage with it in a different way. This relationship space, that's where we do our most powerful work. We can't change the situations in our life right away very often, but we can choose who we will be in relationship to what's going on. And as soon as we shift our perspective, our relationship to what's going on, suddenly other doors open up. We begin to find our way through. If nothing else, at least we start to find just the next step that we can take.
That's beautiful. How can people learn more about your work?
The website is transformationalpresence.org, and so please come and visit us there. Sign up for the free weekly newsletter and find out more about what we're doing there.
Well, Alan, I want to thank you so much. I mean, it's just brilliant and so to the point.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the chance to be with you today, Michael.
Okay, thank you, and be well. And I will look forward to reading your new book when it comes out.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And for all of you who are listening to Slow Medicine Radio, we have another show next week, which I think you'll find equally interesting, with Kulreet Chowdhury, a physician. Actually, she's an integrative neurologist, and she studies the brain and comes across that from a integrative medical perspective. Yet when she did that, what she realized is that people started to lose weight when they followed her advice, people with brain tumors and brain conditions. So she wrote a new book called Prime, Prepare and Repair Your Body for Spontaneous Weight Loss. Of course, many people, that's their interest, but it's an interesting subject, an interesting conversation, and that's what I'll be doing next week on Slow Medicine Radio. I want to thank you again for listening, as always. Next week, at least through the next week, maybe consider Alan's recommendations about feeling your heart. Do the exercise between the low heart and the high heart, and you can give us a call when we speak next. Be well. Take care.